Picture the world before roads, farms, clocks, or electricity. The sun is rising over a quiet valley. Smoke drifts from a small fire. Children begin to wake, and a group of hunters listens carefully to sounds beyond the trees. But the entire day is not spent chasing animals or escaping danger. Some people gather roots and berries. Others repair tools, prepare food, care for the young, or sit together sharing knowledge that has survived for generations. There are long hours of walking, waiting, watching, resting, and listening to the natural world. So, were early humans constantly struggling to stay alive? Or did they live slower, calmer, and more connected lives than we do today? Tonight, we will travel thousands of years into the past and experience one complete day beside them. From the cold light of dawn to the final glowing embers of the fire, we will discover what early humans actually did all day. Before you settle in, don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you're enjoying the journey so far, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I always love seeing people tuning in from different corners of the world. Now, get cozy. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan or the AC for that soft background sound, and let's gently drift into tonight's story together. Imagine opening your eyes in a world without clocks. No alarm beside your bed, no glowing phone waiting to tell you what happened while you were asleep, no calendar reminding you that it is Monday, no traffic outside, no ceiling above you perhaps except for branches, hide, stone, or the fading darkness of a cave entrance. You do not know the date, you do not know the year, you do not even possess the concept of a year in the way we understand it today. But you know the season. You know how long the moon has been shrinking. You know that the berries near the river should be ripening. You know that the herd seen 3 days ago was moving toward the eastern valley. You know that the wind changed during the night. And you know, before you have fully opened your eyes, whether the fire is still alive. This is the part of early human life we often misunderstand. We imagine people waking each morning and immediately beginning a desperate battle against nature. We picture a man gripping a spear. We picture a woman gathering berries. We picture everyone running from predators, dragging mammoths across frozen plains and searching frantically for their next meal. It makes a good movie. But it is not a complete day, and in some ways, it may not even be a particularly accurate one. Early humans did hunt, they did gather, they did face hunger, injury, disease, cold, heat, and predators. But they also repaired things, they planned, they rested, they argued, they watched children, they taught skills, they visited neighbors, they collected firewood, they processed food, they treated hides, they made cordage, they exchanged information, they told stories, they laughed, they waited, and they spent an extraordinary amount of time paying attention. So tonight, we are going to follow a day that never literally happened. It is a composite day, built from archaeology, human biology, and observations of recent hunter-gatherer societies. Our group will not represent one specific tribe, location, or century. No single group could. Human beings lived in deserts, forests, grasslands, mountains, coastlines, and frozen northern landscapes. Their daily routines changed with climate, geography, technology, traditions, and the movement of animals. A person living beside the sea 20,000 years ago did not organize the day in exactly the same way as someone living in East Africa 100,000 years ago. A Neanderthal family in Ice Age Europe faced different conditions from a Homo sapiens community living in northern Australia. So this is not the story of one universal prehistoric schedule. It is an answer to a broader question. What kinds of things filled the waking hours before farms, cities, offices, and clocks? And the answer begins not with a dramatic hunt, but with someone checking the fire. The first person awake may not stand immediately. They may lie still and listen. Around them, other people are breathing. A child turns beneath an animal skin. Someone coughs. Outside the shelter, insects have already begun their morning noise. Birds call from the trees. The air smells of ash, damp earth, and human bodies. The fire appears almost dead. Almost. Beneath a pale layer of ash, a few embers remain. This matters. Today, we can create a flame in seconds. In the deep past, fire could be produced deliberately, but doing so required materials, preparation, and skill. Preserving an existing fire was often easier than creating another one from the beginning. Someone moves closer to the hearth. They push aside the coolest ash with a stick. A red glow appears. Dry grass is added, then bark or thin twigs. The person bends low and blows carefully. Too little air and nothing happens. Too much, too quickly, and ash rises into the face. The ember brightens. A thin thread of smoke curls upward. Then comes a small flame. The day has begun. Fire was not simply prehistoric heating. It transformed food, light, safety, social life, and the organization of space. Hearth placement could influence where people sat, worked, and slept, while smoke movement affected which areas remained comfortable enough for daily activity. Archaeological research at sites such as Lazaret Cave has even examined how hearth location and smoke dispersal shaped usable living space. The morning fire might warm cold hands. It might heat leftover food. It might dry damp material. It might discourage animals from approaching too closely. It might provide the heat needed for working wood, hardening certain tool parts, or preparing adhesives. But before any major activity begins, people look around. Who is awake? Who slept badly? Who is sick? Did the elderly man's fever worsen? Is the child who cut her foot yesterday able to walk? Did the wind damage part of the shelter? Did something enter the food supplies during the night? These are not small questions. A mobile group depends on information that modern people often delegate to institutions. There is no weather service. There is no doctor. There is no refrigerator. There is no police department. There is no repair company. There is only attention, memory, experience, and cooperation. One person notices that the clouds have changed. Another checks tracks near the edge of camp. Someone else walks to where meat or plants were stored. A parent touches a child's forehead. Two adults quietly discuss whether the group should remain here another day. Their conversation may be brief, or it may continue for hours. The first decision of the morning is not always, what should we hunt? It may be, should we move? That one question could reorganize everyone's day. Early humans did not divide the day into 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 11 o'clock. Their schedule was written in light, temperature, hunger, distance, and opportunity. Certain tasks were better in the cool morning. Others required strong daylight. Some depended on tides. Some depended on wind. Some depended on whether an animal's tracks were fresh. Some were postponed because a child was ill. Some began unexpectedly because birds revealed the location of honey, fruit, water, or carcass. Time was not empty space waiting to be filled. Time was a changing landscape. When the sun rose, shadows shortened, scents shifted, and insects became active. In cold environments, frozen ground softened. In hot regions, long travel became more exhausting. The group responded to these changes. Not everyone left camp together. That image, a whole tribe marching in one organized line, is usually too simple. A few people might remain near the shelters. Several may travel toward a known patch of plant food. Others may inspect traps, fishing places, or animal routes. A skilled hunter might leave with 2 companions. An older child may follow adults and practice identifying plants. Someone recovering from an injury may stay behind and work on tools. An elderly person may remain with small children while performing slower tasks. A young adult may do nothing immediately because they returned late during the night. The day is distributed. This distribution is one of humanity's great survival strategies. If everyone searches for the same thing in the same place, a single failure threatens the whole group. But when people pursue different resources, knowledge, and tasks, risk is spread. One party may return with nothing. Another may return with tubers. Someone may locate honey. Someone else may discover water. And a hunter may not return until tomorrow. The day does not depend upon one heroic provider. It depends upon a network. Modern hunter-gatherer studies cannot be copied directly into prehistory, but they help researchers test possibilities. Global modeling and available observations suggest that direct foraging often occupies roughly several hours per person per day, rather than every waking minute. Yet that figure does not include all food processing, childcare, maintenance, travel, care work, and household labor. Broader studies of work in small-scale societies find that total labor can be substantial, especially once these less visible tasks are counted. In other words, early humans were not necessarily starving every hour, but they were not permanently on vacation either. The confusion comes from asking the wrong question. How many hours did they work? Sounds simple. It is not. Does walking with friends toward a fruiting tree count as work? Does teaching a child to dig count as work? Does sitting beside a fire while repairing a spear count as work? Does watching the weather count? Does carrying a baby count? Does telling a story that teaches everyone how to recognize danger count? Modern life draws a hard line between labor and leisure. Early human life may often have blurred it. A person could socialize while processing food. They could teach while gathering. They could rest while making cordage. They could discuss tomorrow's movement while repairing a tool. They could laugh during a task that was absolutely necessary for survival. The day was not divided into work, home, and entertainment. The day was simply the day. Now the camp begins to separate. A small gathering party prepares to leave. They carry containers made from materials that rarely survive in archaeological sites: woven fibers, bark, wood, hide, or animal parts. This is one reason our image of early humans is distorted. Stone survives. Plant fiber usually does not. Wood decays. Leather disappears. A sharpened stone point may remain for tens of thousands of years, while the basket used every day by 3 generations can vanish completely. Archaeology therefore gives us a world made of durable fragments. Stone tools appear everywhere, so we imagine endless stone tool production. Bones survive, so we imagine endless meat. But much of the working day involved materials that return to the earth: wooden digging sticks, cord, nets, baskets, bedding, clothing, slings, straps, containers, handles, mats, simple toys, bundles of grass. These objects may once have surrounded people, even when almost none remain for us to find. There is direct archaeological evidence that fiber technology has deep roots. A fragment of multiply cord associated with Neanderthals at Aubry du Marais dates to roughly 41,000 to 52,000 years ago, indicating knowledge of twisting fibers into a strong composite structure. The gathering party knows where it is going, not because the landscape is easy, but because its members possess a mental map assembled over years. They know where certain plants grow after rain. They know which roots can be found when leaves disappear. They remember where nuts were abundant last season. They recognize soil conditions. They notice bird behavior. They follow insect movement. They look for broken branches, tracks, droppings, and disturbed ground. To an inexperienced observer, the landscape may appear empty. To them, it is crowded with information. A child walks beside the adults. The child is not attending a formal lesson. There is no teacher standing in front of a board. The lesson is embedded in movement. Not that one. Smell this. Look beneath the leaf. Dig here. Watch the ants. Do not touch that. The child imitates, fails, tries again, and slowly becomes useful. Research among recent hunter-gatherer communities shows that children begin learning subsistence skills early, often through observation, participation, play, and child-sized versions of adult tools. Knowledge is transmitted by parents, relatives, other adults, and fellow children, rather than through one narrow teaching relationship. This does not prove that every prehistoric community taught children in exactly the same way, but any population dependent on complex environmental knowledge needed a way to move that knowledge from experienced minds into inexperienced ones. That transfer required time, a great deal of time. Human childhood is long. Children are not born knowing how to make fire, read tracks, prepare toxic plants, find water, butcher an animal, or remember seasonal routes. They must learn. And every hour spent teaching is part of what early humans actually did all day. The gathering party reaches a low patch of vegetation. There is no dramatic music, no charging animal, no spear flying through the air, just several people lowering themselves toward the ground. They begin to dig. This may be one of the most historically important activities that cinema rarely shows. Plant foods could supply calories, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals, flavor, and reliability. Depending on region and season, people collected fruits, leaves, seeds, nuts, roots, tubers, grasses, legumes, gums, mushrooms, and other edible resources. Some could be eaten immediately. Others required hours of processing. A root might need peeling. A seed might need grinding. A nut might need cracking, soaking, or roasting. A toxic plant might require repeated washing, heating, or leaching. Food acquisition did not end when something was pulled from the ground. Sometimes that was when the work began. At Majed Bebe in northern Australia, charred remains dated between approximately 65,000 and 53,000 years ago show that early inhabitants used a variety of plant foods, including some requiring processing. Research at Gari Bouf in Iran has also identified intensive harvesting and processing of wild grasses, cereals, and legumes in Middle Paleolithic contexts, dating as far back as roughly 80,000 years ago. At Tafaralt in North Africa, isotopic research on much later hunter-gatherers suggests a strong reliance on plant foods, reminding us that Paleolithic diet was never one universal menu. The people gathering today do not think in terms of carbohydrates or micronutrients. They know taste. They know fullness. They know what sickens the stomach. They know what keeps. They know what can be carried. They know which foods children can chew. They know which plant is better after fire. They know which one becomes dangerous when prepared incorrectly. This knowledge may be expressed through stories, rules, rituals, and habits rather than scientific language, but it is knowledge nonetheless. One person kneels and loosens the ground with a digging stick. Another collects what is uncovered. A child tries to imitate the motion and strikes the ground too close to the plant. An adult corrects the angle. Nearby, someone searches for insects, eggs, or small animals disturbed by the digging. The categories hunting and gathering begin to blur. A gathering trip might include opportunistic hunting. A hunting trip might include collecting plants. Women could hunt. Men could gather. Children could contribute food. Older adults could remain productive through knowledge and lower-intensity tasks. There were often patterns in labor by age, skill, sex, and physical condition. But these patterns were not identical everywhere, and they should not be mistaken for rigid rules. Recent scholarship has challenged the oversimplified assumption that hunting was always exclusively male. Ethnographic and archaeological research documents women participating in hunting in a range of societies and historical contexts. The party continues moving slowly. They are not collecting everything. That would be foolish. Some plants are left because they are immature. Some patches are avoided because they are too far from water. Some resources are not worth the effort today. Foraging is not merely taking whatever nature provides, it is decision-making. Every item has a cost. How long will it take to find? How difficult is it to process? How heavy is it to carry? How many people will eat it? Will it spoil? Is there a safer or richer patch nearby? The group may not calculate these questions numerically, but experience has trained their judgment. After a while, their containers grow heavier. The youngest child becomes tired. Someone hands the child a small piece of food. There is conversation. There is teasing. Someone remembers a person who once became lost near this place. Another points toward clouds gathering in the distance. The group decides whether to continue or turn back. No one announces the decision in a boardroom. No one writes it down. A few comments, gestures, and glances are enough, and then everyone begins the walk home. Elsewhere, several hunters move through open land. This is the scene we expect, but it does not begin with action. It begins with uncertainty. The hunters walk, then they stop, then they look, then they walk again. They inspect the ground, they test the wind, they listen, they speak quietly. Sometimes they do not speak at all. A successful hunt may contain only a brief moment of violence. Everything before that moment is search, interpretation, positioning, and restraint. Everything after it is butchery, transport, distribution, and processing. The dramatic strike may last seconds. The complete operation may occupy hours or days. The hunters find tracks. Are they fresh? How many animals? Which direction? Were they moving calmly or running? Is there a young animal in the group? Is the herd approaching water? Is the wind carrying human scent toward them? The tracks are not simply footprints. They are a story. And skilled tracking is a form of reconstruction. A bent stem, a displaced stone, moist soil, droppings with a certain temperature, flies gathering in one location. Each clue updates the story. The hunters follow. But this is not necessarily a reckless pursuit. Injury is expensive. A deep cut, damaged ankle, or broken bone can reduce a person's ability to contribute for weeks. A dangerous wound can become infected. A large animal is not a passive collection of calories. It has horns, hooves, teeth, weight, and panic. The hunters therefore balance ambition against risk. A hunt abandoned is not always a failure. Sometimes it is intelligence. Early hunting could involve spears, throwing sticks, traps, nets, projectiles, clubs, landscape features, fire, dogs in later periods, and coordinated group movement. Wooden weapons have an ancient history. The Schöningen site in Germany preserved wooden spears and throwing sticks from hundreds of thousands of years ago, demonstrating careful selection and shaping of the wood for hunting. At Qasim Cave in Israel, animal remains dating roughly between 400,000 and 200,000 years ago have been interpreted as evidence that large game hunting and meat sharing were regular organized practices. Still, knowing that people hunted does not tell us exactly how this morning unfolds. Perhaps the hunters never see the herd. Perhaps they hear movement but cannot approach without being detected. Perhaps they encounter a smaller animal and change plans. Perhaps they discover a carcass killed by another predator. Perhaps they follow tracks for hours and return empty-handed. Hunting returns are often unpredictable. That unpredictability helps explain the importance of food sharing. One household may succeed today and fail tomorrow. Another may fail today and succeed next week. Sharing does not eliminate hunger, but it spreads risk across relationships. Among mobile foragers, cooperation in food transfers can buffer short-term differences in acquisition. People's social connections therefore become part of their survival system. The hunters continue. The sun is higher now. They pause in shade. One drinks. Another adjusts the binding on a weapon. A younger member asks about the tracks. The older tracker explains what he sees. The conversation is not ceremonial. It is quiet and practical. But a map is being copied from one mind into another. Eventually, they locate several animals. The wind favors them. The group separates slightly. One moves left. Two remain low. No one charges. No one shouts. They wait. This is the hidden skill in hunting. Not aggression, patience. One animal moves. A weapon is thrown. The scene becomes fast, confused, and dangerous. Then it is quiet again. The animal lies still. The hunters stand around it, breathing heavily. There may be relief, excitement, gratitude, sadness, ritual, humor, or simply immediate concentration, because the successful strike does not end the task. It creates many new ones. The body must be opened, useful portions must be separated, meat must be protected from insects, heat, and scavengers, tools must remain sharp, blood makes surfaces slippery, heavy pieces must somehow return to camp. The hunters have succeeded. Now the real work begins. A large animal is not conveniently divided into packages. It is heavy, warm, and difficult to move. The hunters begin processing it near the place where it fell. Stone edges are used to cut skin and tissue, joints are opened, muscle is removed, bones may be broken for marrow, tendons may be saved, hide may be preserved, certain organs may be eaten quickly. Other portions are separated for transport. Every part presents a decision. What is valuable? What can be carried? What will spoil first? What does the group need? What material will be useful later? The animal is not merely food. Its hide may become clothing, bedding, shelter, straps, containers, or coverings. Tendon may become binding or thread. Bone may become tools. Teeth may become ornaments. Fat may be used for cooking, light, preservation, or skin treatment. Even waste can attract scavengers or alter where the group feels safe. The hunters work while watching the surroundings. A kill site attracts attention. Birds circle, the smell travels. Other predators may arrive. The hunters may need to leave sooner than they would prefer. They load themselves. There are no wheeled vehicles, no roads, no pack animals during most of the time span we are considering. The human body is the transport system. Shoulders, backs, hands, and heads carry the results. This limits everything. A resource can be abundant and still be useless if it is too far away. A successful hunt can produce more weight than a few people can move. The hunters may return to camp and bring others back, or they may cache part of the meat, or they may carry only the most valuable portions. The walk home is slower. Flies gather around the load. The sun feels hotter. Blood dries on hands and arms. The younger hunter is exhausted but does not complain. The group has accomplished something important, yet success has increased the day's labor. This is a recurring pattern in early human life. Good fortune creates work. A large harvest must be processed. A rich nut patch means cracking, drying, and transport. A successful hunt means cutting, carrying, cooking, preserving, and distributing. A new source of stone means collecting and moving heavy raw material. A favorable shelter may require cleaning and preparation. Survival is not just finding resources, it is converting them into forms that people can use. Back at camp, someone sees the returning hunters. A call goes out. People stand. Children run toward them. The atmosphere changes. Information moves through camp before the meat does. What was killed? Where? How much remains? Did anyone get hurt? Were other animals nearby? Should more people return to the site? This is not merely celebration, it is coordination. Several people retrieve additional tools and containers. Others begin preparing the fire. Someone clears a working space. An older adult directs children away from sharp tools. A person with experience in skinning examines the hide. The successful hunt now becomes a group project, and the identities of hunter and non-hunter become less useful. The person who struck the animal may receive attention, but the meal depends on everyone who processes, cooks, carries, shares, preserves, and cleans. The day's calories are produced collectively. While some people have been away, camp has not been inactive. One adult sits near the hearth, holding a damaged stone tool. The edge is dull. A few controlled strikes remove small flakes. The edge becomes sharp again. This is not always the creation of a beautiful new object. Much prehistoric tool work was maintenance. A tool wears down. It breaks. It is reshaped. A fragment becomes a smaller tool. A valuable stone core travels with the group and is gradually reduced. One object may pass through several forms before it is discarded. Nearby, someone works on a wooden shaft. Another person twists fiber. Another scrapes a hide. Someone repairs a container. A child copies the stoneworker using worthless fragments. The child's movements are clumsy. The sound is wrong. The angle is wrong. The adult does not deliver a lecture. They take the child's hands, adjust the position, demonstrate once, and return to work. This may happen dozens of times. Skill is not a piece of information. Skill is trained movement. Knowing that stone can be flaked does not make someone a toolmaker. The hand must learn force. The eyes must recognize fractures. The body must anticipate where a flake will travel. The toolmaker must choose material, understand grain, and avoid striking in ways that ruin the piece. The same is true of hide processing. A skin taken from an animal does not automatically become comfortable clothing. It can stiffen, rot, or attract insects. It must be cleaned and treated. Fat and tissue must be removed. The hide may be stretched, worked, smoked, or treated with other substances. The exact method depends on local knowledge and intended use. This process can take hours across multiple days. Clothing itself is difficult to reconstruct because organic material decays. Yet indirect evidence, hide working tools, needles, artistic representations, and anatomical changes suggests that tailored or fitted coverings became important in colder Pleistocene environments. Evidence of probable footwear is also indirect, though bead arrangements in burials and changes in foot anatomy support its use by at least some populations. Needles, cord, hide scrapers, and piercing tools imply a world of labor that is almost invisible after the materials disappear. Someone had to make every strap. Someone had to repair every tear. Someone had to replace worn bindings on weapons. Someone had to gather the fiber. Someone had to process it. Someone had to twist it. Someone had to remember how. This maintenance rarely becomes the center of a heroic story, but without it, the heroic hunt does not happen. The spear point falls from its shaft, the carrying strap breaks, the container leaks, the shelter collapses, the clothing fails in cold rain. Early humans spent much of the day preventing small failures from becoming fatal ones. Civilization did not begin when people started maintaining things. Human life was already built upon maintenance. Now consider the sound of camp, not the romantic silence of a museum display. The real sound, babies crying, children laughing, someone calling a name, stone striking stone, a person coughing, wood cracking in the fire, food being pounded, adults talking over one another, a toddler protesting, an older child inventing a game. Early human camps were not populated entirely by serious adults staring nobly into the distance. They contained children, many children. And children reshape every schedule. A baby must be carried. A toddler must be watched. A young child wanders toward the fire. Another picks up something sharp. Someone becomes hungry at an inconvenient time. Someone is tired while the group is traveling. Someone refuses to walk. Someone becomes fascinated by an insect when everyone else is ready to leave. This is not a minor background detail. Human children are unusually dependent for unusually long periods. Raising them requires enormous investment, yet that care may not fall entirely upon one mother. Research among hunter-gatherer populations documents extensive cooperative childcare involving fathers, siblings, grandparents, and other members of the community. Children form close networks with multiple caregivers and playmates. Again, recent societies are not living fossils, but our species' long childhood almost certainly required social support deep in the past. An adult who receives help with childcare can gather, process food, recover, sleep, or care for another child. An older sibling who watches a toddler is already contributing to the group. A grandmother who knows where food remains available during a difficult season may be more valuable than a young adult with greater strength but less experience. A child's day also contains play. Running, wrestling, throwing, building miniature shelters, pretending to hunt, imitating food preparation, making small objects, following older children, experimenting with tools. Play looks unproductive when measured by immediate calories, but play trains bodies and minds. It develops coordination, it teaches social rules, it allows mistakes at lower cost. A child pretending to stalk an animal is practicing silence, balance, attention, and prediction. A child making a miniature basket is learning material behavior. A child playing with others is learning cooperation, conflict, reconciliation, and persuasion. Research among Bayaka children shows that play and social learning are deeply connected, while studies of Hadza children find that large portions of in-camp time may involve resting, eating, walking, running, and playing rather than formal labor. Children gradually take on useful tasks. They collect firewood, carry small loads, gather easy-to-recognize foods, fetch water, watch younger siblings, help process materials, learn songs and stories, remember relationships, transmit information between adults. Their contribution expands with age and competence. The transition from play to work is not always obvious. A child follows adults because it is interesting, then begins collecting, then becomes skilled, then teaches someone younger. Knowledge flows through generations without a classroom bell. And because knowledge is shared through daily life, every ordinary task can become a lesson. How to hold a knife, how to recognize rain, how to greet visitors, how to divide food, how to respond when someone is angry, how close to sit beside the fire, where not to walk, which stories belong to which season, what to do when an animal appears, who can make decisions, who needs help, what counts as fairness. To survive as a human being, a child must learn more than the landscape. The child must learn the group. By the middle of the day, people may eat, or they may not. There is no universal breakfast at 8, lunch at noon, and dinner at 6. Meals depend on what is available, what was prepared earlier, and what people are doing. Someone eats leftover roasted food in the morning. A gathering party snacks while traveling. Hunters carry something compact or go without food for hours. Children eat when adults return with resources. A larger shared meal may happen later. People may eat around the fire, in small clusters, or while working. The menu varies dramatically. Meat, fish, shellfish, eggs, roots, fruits, nuts, seeds, honey, insects, leaves, marrow, organs, whatever local knowledge, technology, and season make available. Some foods are cooked directly over flame. Others are placed beside heat. Some are buried with hot stones. Some are roasted in ash. Some may be dried or smoked. Containers made from organic materials can be used with heated stones even before heat-resistant pottery becomes common. Food processing changes texture and digestibility. It can reduce pathogens and toxins. It allows children and older adults to eat materials that would otherwise be difficult. But cooking also requires fuel. Fuel must be collected. In dry regions, wood may be scarce. In cold regions, the fire must be maintained. In wet conditions, usable material must be protected. Someone has spent part of the day gathering what the fire consumes. This is another hidden form of labor. The flame appears natural only because someone keeps feeding it. As food is prepared, people talk. They compare what they found. The gathering party reports that a nearby patch is nearly exhausted. A hunter describes fresh tracks to the north. Someone saw smoke in the distance. This could mean another group. Someone remembers relatives who may be traveling in that direction. A decision about tomorrow begins to form. Information shared during food preparation can affect movement, alliances, and survival. What looks like casual conversation may be the group's intelligence system. The distribution of food also matters. Who receives the best portion? Are children served first? Does the successful hunter control the meat? Is food shared equally? Do certain relatives expect more? What happens when someone repeatedly takes without contributing? There is no single prehistoric answer. Human societies develop norms. Norms create expectations. Expectations create tension. Early humans were cooperative, but cooperation does not mean perfect harmony. People became jealous. They resented unfairness. They remembered generosity. They noticed laziness. They formed friendships. They had rivals. They gossiped. A camp was a social environment, and social survival could be almost as important as physical survival. A person expelled from a group faced extraordinary danger. A person trusted by many people gained access to food, information, care, and potential partners. Relationships were therefore practical assets, emotional bonds, and moral obligations at the same time. The most important tool in camp may not have been the sharpest stone. It may have been a good reputation. Now the day becomes hot. Movement slows. People sit in shade or near the shelter. Someone sleeps briefly. Someone nurses a baby. Someone examines a sore foot. Someone continues scraping hide with a repetitive motion. Someone else simply watches. This is where modern observers sometimes become confused. They see people resting during daylight and conclude that the lifestyle is effortless, or they see difficult travel and conclude that every hour is exhausting. Both impressions can be true on different days. Foraging life often alternates intensity and inactivity. A person may walk many miles, carry a heavy load, and then rest for a long period. A hunt may demand explosive effort followed by waiting. A move between camps may be grueling, while the following day remains quiet. The human body is not designed to perform maximum labor continuously. It works in rhythms: effort, recovery, attention, effort again. Rest is not the absence of survival behavior. Rest protects survival capacity. It reduces overheating. It allows recovery from injuries. It conserves energy when action offers little benefit. It creates time for conversation, observation, and low-intensity work. Someone sitting under a tree may still be twisting fiber. Someone lying near the fire may be teaching a child a song. Someone apparently doing nothing may be listening for distant animals. Someone may be thinking. We cannot excavate thought. There is no fossil of a plan, no preserved trace of a joke, no stone layer labeled "two people reconciled" here. Archaeology is best at recovering material consequences, but most human life leaves no durable object. A conversation can redirect a migration, a warning can save a child, a memory can guide people to water, a marriage can connect two communities, a disagreement can divide a camp, a song can preserve information for centuries. None of these events necessarily leaves a mark in the soil. So when we imagine early humans, we must resist the idea that only visible artifacts represent real activity. People spent time doing what humans still do, watching one another, remembering, worrying, hoping, daydreaming, negotiating, making sense of the world, and occasionally doing absolutely nothing important at all. If this epic story brought you a sense of wonder and helped you relax tonight, please consider supporting the channel. Take a moment to like this video, leave a comment below with your favorite part of the story, share it with someone who loves history, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us create more deep, immersive storytelling designed to help you unwind and explore the past. Sleep well, and until next time, may your dreams be filled with history.